Well, before we begin, does everybody all get his Not Scary Fun ticket? Everybody, right? They all get a ticket. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we don't have a lot of time, so we have to get everybody back. So, you know, many of you already know Carol, okay, and then Carol, she's our vice president of R&D, and you know, I know Carol a long time ago when I was original as a developer, you know, for Macola, and she's been working on this platform for how many years?
Long time.
A long time. So anyway, okay, and then you know, whereas you know, so lucky to have Carol working for us, okay, because she's a great asset for us, okay, and so and then with that, I'd like to let Carol take over, okay. Thank you.
Good morning. We'll talk about a little bit about Report Desk, and this is the general user face, or what your users would see when they run a Report Desk report, or the options that they could do if they choose, if you choose to allow them to modify reports. And if I have time at the end, I'll do a little live demo and do a little change. So this is where you need to start if you're interested in running Report Desk. The support portal has a basic article that tells you how to run and how to design a Report Desk report. It'll take you through step by step and show you all the options, and basically what I'm going to step you through here. So you'll have printouts of basically this knowledge-based article in your binder. The first thing that you need to do is the Report Desk is enabled through company specialized control and global setup. You'll see here on the screen, option 3, there's two flags that are there. The first one allows you to turn it on to use it. And once you turn it on, it is not on for everybody. It's not even on. This is just enabling the actual, it's like turning on a package. What you'll notice though, when you do turn it on, it'll ask you to verify that you have converted your data to the alphabetic format of the database. So when we introduced alphabetic document numbers in 8.5, that required you to do a database conversion to convert all your document numbers from numeric to alpha. Report Desk is written to use that version of the database. So you have to do that conversion before you can run Report Desk. So this is verifying that you have done that before you start to use it. The second option that you'll have on the screen is it's going to ask you if you want your users to only see the default reports. If you say yes to this, then you'll have the ability to go in as a supervisor and choose which reports you want the users.
That's close.
Okay, sorry. So you'll have the ability to go in and when you see a list of reports, you'll be able to choose which ones you want your users to use. So let's say you've decided, oh, on this report, we only want you to use the Report Desk report. We don't want you to use legacy, the old LA reports anymore. You could turn off the legacy reports and force them to just use the Report Desk reports. The next screen, I'll show you an example. So as a supervisor, when you go into this screen, you see the show column that's on there. So you can tick off which ones, the ones that are checked there, they are the ones right now we're allowing them to see all the reports. But if you don't want them to see some of the reports, you can turn them off. There's two settings and the user global security setup that you need to set for the users. The first one is on a user by user basis, or globally, you can say whether or not you want your users to use Report Desk to actually be able to run Report Desk report. If you set that to no, it'll run the same way that it used to run under 8.5, and just the legacy reports will run. So this could be set at either globally for everybody, or you could set everybody to no, and then just start off with certain users and let them run. And then the other global setup flag you need to look at is this one. This one lets you choose whether or not a user has the rights to actually modify or create their own version of a Report Desk report. So Report Desk needs to know your DSN, or you needs to know your database names. And we support the standard formats. So you've seen these before, the ELI 885 data 01 for company 1, or data 02, or however you have yours set up. It also supports the 8.2 database with numeric document numbers, but then you need to check and verify they actually have the updated version of the 8.2 DDFs, because for Report Desk to run, we need to know that you have the definitions of the NS control file. NS control file are your global setup settings. So obviously, if you're running a report and you have an option in global setup that says don't print this or do that, Report Desk needs to know that. So we have to have those table definitions in your DDFs. To set up the database configuration, you can, when you're logged in as supervisor, you can click on the config button that's up in the upper left-hand corner, and then that will launch the Elliott configurator. Or you can also run the Elliott configurator from the bin 86 directory. This is what the Elliott configurator looks like. If you've run A5, you've seen this before, but you can go in here and set up your database names. Under the database column, if you click on that, you can go ahead and pick a database that is set up in the pSQL Control Center. If the databases haven't been set up there, you can click on that Create Standard Databases. That will actually launch the EL860 database application, where you can create database names from there. It will only do standard database names. So if you have a database that's named non-standard, like I know like Davidson's has DAB data, or Xander's may have Xan data, or then you need to go through the pSQL Control Center to set those up beforehand and then enter them manually here. It will accept a manual entry in that database field. Here's an example of what the database configurator looks like. You can see here that it's asking that you have this. It knows that you have company 14. Do you want to go ahead and create the database name for company 14? So you check the checkbox and click create databases, and it'll create it the same way as if you went through the pSQL Control Center to do it. When you run a report in Elliott and it has a Report Desk report associated with it, instead of just launching right into the parameter screen, you'll see a list. You'll see this list of reports as a user. So you can see the first item on this list is the legacy terms code list, and that is the old Elliott report. The second item on the list is the new Report Desk report. Report Desks they support a standard naming convention. So you basically will always see an 8-character name that's trying to tell you what type of a report it is. The X that's next, it tells you whether this is a base report, which means the standard Elliott report, or it's an enhancement, which would be like our firearms enhancement, those types of reports. The first number after the X is for the template ID. When we say template, we're talking about the SQL template. So when you run different reports, so let's say you have a summary version of a report and you have a detailed version of a report. The SQL may be different for those, because I may, for the detailed version, I be running from a line item file versus running from a order header file. So because the SQL templates are different, you will see different numbers for this, depending on if we had to change the SQL for that report to run properly. The second one is the report ID, and that means that we may have different iterations of the same report. So one report we may show, just a whole bunch of information. Like if you think about the customer numeric list and all the fields that are on there, you may have a report like that. But then we may have one that just shows the customer contacts or customer's credit information. So those would run off of the same SQL template, but they would be different versions of the report output. And then the third number is the user revision, and that is reports that you have created yourself. Did not come from us. They're ones that you have created yourself. So when you run a report desk report, this is a standard screen that you'll see. You can, this one is just simple. It's the terms code list. So you can enter, this one has a between option for the operator. But all you have to do is, if you click on the OK button, it will default to all. You don't have to tab through the fields if you want every option on the report. If you just want certain things, you can just mouse on it, click it, fill it out, click OK, and it will run. After you click OK, what you'll see next is a report option screen, which should be similar to what you see now when you spool the report. So you have the ability to take it to the printer. You can go to screen, you can go to disk and email. When you go to, you also notice that at the bottom, there's a format on how you want it to go. So the default format is PDF, but you could also choose Excel or CSV, or there's multiple options for the output.
Carol?
Yes.
I didn't see you have a defer option. Does that exist?
Not, it does.
Oh, we don't have a defer.
Not yet. Not yet. So when I run the report, this is what you get. So this is basically just the standard terms code list that we have defined that's included with the package. And you can see when I ran the report, it went to PDF. So let's say your user has a right. Yes.
Go ahead, Tom. Yeah, so if you're using the legacy report, it uses the transactional engine.
Yes.
Choose power search, and everything switches to the relational.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, report desk uses the relational engine. That's correct. So let's say your user has rights to modify a report. So this is these are the customer lists. So you can see the legacy numeric customer list is here, and we have a whole bunch of different options that we're providing for different variations of the data. So here's the standard options that are on this report. So let's say that you wanted to modify this. And I don't know, but when I run stuff, I mean, especially customer numbers, or if I was going to run a customer search or a customer report, I might just want to see who's had sales this year. I want to see who's active. So to modify this, you just click on the modify button. And then we present you with the screen. So the tables on the right, I'm sorry, on the left are these are the tables that were provided through a join on the report. So let's say we want to add that customers, the amount of sales year to date. We want to add it to the report. So you would just expand that option, that database table name, then you would select the field that you want. And we're going to drag this field, the sales year to date, up to the where. is when you do that, it's going to insert a line here. And then you will get the option to say, well, what do you want to do with this? What's the operator for this? So I chose greater than or equal to sales year to date. You can change the title. It'll default to the field name, but you can change it to a user-friendly title. And then you can click on there's a test button that's on the screen at the bottom, and you can click that before you ever save it. You can click that and test your report to see if it works. You can see here that it went ahead and it added the field to the parameter screen, and I put 1,000 in it. You just enter the data and you click OK. Then you'll see you get the report output screen from here. If you notice on the bottom, there is a option to print the parameters. It defaults to yes. And what this is the same option that you would have had on the legacy reports as the legends that were printed on the top of the reports. So when you run the report, you end up with this output. And so it only printed the customers that had sales year to date greater than or equal to $1,000. Yeah.
Can you go back there where you went into select modify? Again, modify that report.
One more.
report,
Here.
Where did you go? Okay,
Modify. Yeah.
And because you've given access control at a user at a global level, that'll show it.
Yes. Yes.
If you choose a field in the filter that is a string or a number, does it force the numbers or?
There's types. Yeah. There's specific data types. So when it'll automatically know that it knows based upon the database that it's a number or a string. But then here, but when you're over here, you see the type column up at the top, we have special ones. So if we have a field that has special formatting, like, customer numbers, we always zero pad them. If you tell it it's a customer number, then it'll zero pad it automatically for you. Account numbers, take your account number format into consideration. So when you enter the data, it'll put the dashes in for you. Date, you tell it's a date field, you can just enter the numbers, or you use the calendar button, but you could just enter the numbers without the slashes. It'll put the slashes in for you.
On the next screen where you have a report and somebody can change, like, where you can say that says you're getting greater than 1,000. Does it stop you from entering letters there
Yes.
or symbols? Or
Yes.
things that shouldn't be there? It's
Yes.
validated before-
Yeah, it knows the type. It knows it's numeric. Yes. Okay. So whenever you make a whenever you make a change to a report, when you're back on this screen, you can see here, so you have the option at the bottom. So at this point, after I do my test, I can either exit or I can save new. When you do the save new, the save button itself is grayed out. And the reason that it's grayed out is because we don't allow you, even though you have you're a user and you can modify reports, we don't allow you to modify our base Elliott reports. So when it saves it, you can save it as a new report. I'll go back over here and then you can see. So when I saved it as a new report, you see in the list, the one that's highlighted, it took the base report that we modified and it tacked a 1 on the end. So that is a user defined report. And that's how you can tell the difference is in the numbering format. So anything that's got a number in the last position was created by somebody in your company, was not a standard report that was delivered from Elliott. And when we install updates, we will only update our reports. We won't overwrite your reports. So they'll stay there.
two people make modifications,
Mhm.
will it do dot one, dot two,
Mhm.
it won't overwrite something?
No, one over, as long as they say save new, then it will create a new one. If they click on save afterwards, I'll show you, we'll go through, we'll add another change.
And then in conjunction with that, say somebody had accidentally saved it, you can go back in and delete the.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, you can, yeah, of course, I'll show you. So let's say, well, you saw on this screen, so now we have two reports here that have the same title. They both say customer credit info. So how do I tell the difference between the two? Well, you can modify the report title that's on the report so that you can distinguish it. I mean, be creative, you can add whatever you want. You can put this is Carol's report, you can call it whatever you want. But yeah, so let's say you came in here and you didn't like it and you wanted to get rid of it. Here's where you could go and delete it. There is a delete option on this screen, but you can only delete the reports that you have written, not the reports that come as base reports from Elliott.
Are you able to block reports that are by default Elliott reports?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if you if you log in as supervisor and you have the option set to do that, you just turn it off, turn the checkbox off. They're all on by default, but you can turn them off.
But only to 8.6 users or also 8.5?
It won't turn it off for 8.5. If you're trying to turn off a legacy report, you can't. And when you turn it off, you're turning it off for all users, not just specific users, just all users. So when you make a change to a report, so before we did a save new, now this time we did a save. When you do a save, you can log your changes that were made to the report. So you can give it a description and say why you made this change to the report. So we actually have a log file where you can document these changes and you can go back and look and see why. Now, so when you're in here, you have the option, you can either put something in here and save, or you can exit and don't log this change. Okay. We also give you the option to change the order of the reports. So you can, in this example here, we're going to drag this up and we're going to do this by customer name instead of in order by customer number. So if you just grab the field and you drag it to this order by grouping area, and you choose where you want to place it. So if you want the customer name first, the customer number underneath, then you would put it on top. If you went the other way, you choose when you drag it. And they also, once they're there, if you don't like the position, you can grab them from within the list and move them. And then you have the ability to choose whether you want it to be in ascending or descending order. And here's an example. So in this example, I don't want customer number to be considered. I just want to do this on customer name. So if you right mouse on a field, you get the option, you can delete a row. And the same thing works in all three sections, in your where, in your order by, and down in the body. So again, we changed what the report is. So I'm going to change the title. You can see that we changed the order by section, and I'm going to save this report. And again, I'll always ask you to log your changes. So you can see now this report is coming in and printing in order by name, in ascending order by customer name. So let's say that we want a group. Okay, we want this report to print by customer type and then customer name within that customer type. So you would have to take the customer type field and drag it to the body of the report. And then you'll notice the order by and the grouping, we have it grouped by customer name and customer type first. So to say that I actually want to group by customer type, you would go to the customer type field and you see this the group column. I want to say, this is my first grouping. I am going to group by customer type when this report prints. And also, since the order by is by customer type and customer name, then I'm going to switch and I'm going to move customer number under customer name so that when you see the output, so all these fields that are down in the bottom, if you don't like the order, you can drag them, move them around. There's a little, the plus sign that's next to line 1, you can make it 2 lines on the report. There's just a lot of flexibility for when you design the reports. So I run the report and you can see that it is grouped by the customer type and then ascending in customer name order. Now, since we just added that type to the report, so how do we determine what font to use, what size to use on the fields? How does that all work? Well, when you drag the things across, when the report prints, it's using a best fit algorithm. So it's trying to go through based upon the data. So let's say you're printing off a list of 50 customers, and it takes a look at the data that's coming in and will adjust the columns on the report based upon that data. If there's fields that are too large that it can't fit, it will wrap. So like customer name, item descriptions, those are things that will most likely wrap. It'll also shrink the font. So if it thinks I can make this fit in a better font, then it'll do that. It'll also flip from portrait to landscaping. It handles all that in the background. You don't have to tell it to do any of it. It just takes care of it for you. So there are some times, and I've seen this on some reports where, like our smallest default font that we use is 8. You can go into a report. There's a button on there that'll allow you to choose a smaller font. But if it's smaller, it's very hard to read. So when you get to the point where you've added so much data there that it's not usable as a report, and maybe what you're really trying to do is get the data out for you to use in another application, or you want to look at it in Excel instead of on a PDF, or you need to change it and remove some data off of there that's not important to you, or change it to a multi-line report. There's things that you can do if that size shrinks down and the font is too small for you to use. So now we added that customer type as a group. Well, now we can also total by that group. So I want to see the subtotal of the amounts by customer type. So there's a group, when you added the group to the report, that 1 in the group field, then it automatically created these tabs on the bottom. So we have a group header and we have group footers. And then again, you can see the plus sign. When you click on the plus sign, that's going to open it up and it's going to add a tab on the right-hand side where you can drag the data that you want to see. So let's say we want to do a subtotal by customer balance. So we're going to take the customer balance field, and if you drag it over to the balance field, the column headings will default to how you set up your original layout in the body tab. So we know that customer balance goes to that field. Once you drag it there, it's going to know that this is a number, and it knows that since it's an accumulator, most likely you're going to need that field to be larger. So it's going to ask, do you want to increase the size of this field, by two spaces to accommodate the accumulation? Answer yes or no, depends on how you want to handle, or what kind of data is on the report. If you don't think it would ever do that, you can answer no. I usually answer yes. You can also drag text over. So let's say you wanted to put something there that said, oh, this is a subtotal. Or if you could say, I'm subtotaling for a customer type, and you could drag the customer type field there, and then it would say subtotals for type. You have a lot of flexibility on how you can make that bottom line work. Also, once you drag the text over, you can also make it bold. Say you want to bold that text, or you have the ability to bold a line. So then when you print the report, you can see that it's got the subtotals for the balance field, the sales year to date, and the sales last year. And also added a grand total. Grand totals are in the report, are handled in the footer area. Yeah, and this again, this is putting text in this subtotal area. So when you run the report, as I said before, you have the ability, you can format it as you can also format it as a CSV or an Excel report. And once you run it, it'll render in Excel automatically. Now, when you run reports like this, you'll see that the subtotals and the grand totals, the breaks are missing. That's because our assumption is if you're going to this format in CSV or Excel, your intention is to do your own data manipulation with it. You're exporting it to put it into some external package. You're trying to do something different with this data other than just a report. So we do not do the grand totals or the subtotals. So let's say I have a report that I always run it with a certain set of parameters. Every time I run it, I always answer the same parameters on the screen. You have the ability to save those so that you can use them later. So for this report, I say, okay, every time I run this, I want sales year to date to be greater than or equal to 1,000. So you can go ahead and give it a name, tell it whether or not you want those report options to be to be saved. When I say report options, I'm talking about the stuff that's on the screen. So I always want to take it to PDF, and I always want to go to screen when I run this. And whenever you run the report, you have this option. You'll see a use button that'll be on the top of the screen. And when you click on it, it'll show you all of your templates that you have saved for how you want to run the reports.
That's specific to the intake role that's logged in, or that.
That's a good question. Is it specific? Do you remember? I think it's specific to the individual. The templates, are the templates specific? I don't remember how to the Elliott user. You know, when you save your parameters,
Oh, the parameter is,
like what kind of an error message? Like if you're running a report and it doesn't like something with the SQL, it will print right on the report.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it prints right there. It'll be in red.
Generate everything within a certain time, you have that ability. So say you want the same report to run.
Not yet. Not yet. That would be with deferred, and that will be, we're still working on that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Since the report template is saved by user, data saved on a user basis, is there a way to share that report with another user?
I don't think so. He wants to share the template, the parameters. He wants to share it. Yeah, I know. He wants to share it.
Design is shared by everybody. Yeah,
It-
parameter is used.
Right, when you're running the report, when you save the parameters, if those are saved just for the Elliott user, how can we share them with another Elliott user?
Okay.
It's a good
Also,
question.
This is something we can test out. Maybe this is something in the early days we thought about this. If you log in as a supervisor
Mhm.
and then you save the parameter under the user supervisor, I think that one is shared by everybody.
Okay,
I think that's.
they have to test it, yeah.
So there's a lot of things in Elliott that if you log in as a supervisor and then you do saving, whatever the saving with the supervisor is enforcing or sharing by other people as well. We can verify.
So if you only want specific people, then basically you have to create the template for each individual.
Yeah, I think
user,
so.
so
Yeah,
they
I-
can be able to-
Yeah, I'll have to test it. I'll test it and see how it works.
Is there a way to suppress details to where, like, let's say if you had two customers group that, right, looking at the sales amounts. I know with like, you could typically like suppress the detail and just see like the summary.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do summary levels at the, it's in this, it's complicated, but yeah.
Okay, but it-
We have a couple of reports that we have done that work that way. Yeah, we did summaries at the body level and not at the group footer level. Yes. Okay, I don't know if I have enough time. Let's see. Select Elliott. Okay. And it's not showing the screen. Oosh. And it won't share. What am I doing? You get this to do it. Here. This is weird. It won't. It won't share my screen. It won't get off of PowerPoint.
Oh, well,
Do I need
that's
to close
escape out,
this?
but. Right,
Is
Yeah,
it
there you go.
stuck? Is that why? Is Zoom
I
got
don't
stuck?
know, it's kind of HDMI stuff, okay. And I think it's back now, yeah.
Yes, okay. We'll do this quick. Okay, let's just do a quick one. So I'm gonna take the single level where used by item report. And you see, there's only this one parameter here. Let's say that I want to add my parent product category. I'm gonna modify this. So I just take this field. This. Since we're short on time, I'll do it this way. And here's the example of what Edward was saying before. Can do this. think this is right. I'm on. That's right. Okay, so now we have the item product category in the, as one of my screen parameters. The product category is already on this report, so I can just test it. See if I got the SQL right. So here's the product category. So here you go. So just by putting that there, I can define this. So let's say we want to run everything. Yeah, LB, this is your data. From U4 to U5. And I'm just going to take it to screen with PDF. It should. Let me see here. See, how many records?
500 ladies.
It's big. Not bad. 581, 9,193 records. So not bad, not bad. Yeah, this is local.
To get the count, when there was, we had the report writer screen up, it had the count of records for it. Did it run 2 queries to run the report then?
It has to run a query, it will get the count, and then it takes the data that it gets and it figures, that's how it's figuring out the column sizes.
Okay.
So yeah,
You take
based
the
upon the
query,
data.
You strip out all the select stuff.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
And
It's
then
a strip down.
And then you run it again.
Yeah, it's a strip down to get the count to figure out if the, because we also have, I mean, there's safety mechanisms that are built in here so that if the report takes too long, it'll stop. And actually, if that initial selection process takes over, I think it's 30 seconds. It used to be 30. I think it'll actually pop up a window and it'll tell you, hey, this is taking a little longer than it should, you know, it could be because of your joins, or, you know, it gives you a bunch of reasons on why it could be, or it could be that you selected way too much data, or like you ran it for every single order in order history. Like that would be silly, you know, so it'll pop up and warn you, and then it'll show a counter and it'll tell you that once I hit 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm not running anymore, and it'll stop. Okay.
Carol, that SQL thing, that's protected for this one, right?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Okay, we take a break. We'll be back by 11:15 for the next presentation. Thank you.
Oh,